Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. But today we've got some impromptu recs all about feminine rage. But before we get into the books, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, my own feminine rage that I am feeling right now in this moment. Why, you ask? So here's the thing. Men, male identifying authors, are out here writing about women's issues. There's quite literally a British man that wrote a book about Roe v. Wade, titled Roe v. Wade, capitalizing on American women's strife and oppression. It's disgusting. Why else? Why else? Because men are out here getting away with writing child with no repercussions. In fact, their little groupies eat it right up. And why else? Because male authors are out here consistently writing from female POVs, obliviously publishing their work that shows a complete disregard and lack of sensitivity towards their female readers and all women in general. They have no idea what it's like to be a woman in this world, and they show it through their words in these little disgusting nuggets of misogyny. And then when I call it out, they like to say that I'm just getting triggered. That's not intentional horror. If you're writing something intentionally to be horrifying and a reader doesn't like it because it's horrifying, that's one thing. But a valid critique of misogyny is not something that you can just write off. When they're called out, instead of taking it gracefully and attempting to be an ally or, I don't know, show any kind of empathy for female lovers of horror because we're a part of the genre as well, attempting to understand that they are the oppressor and take a step back, instead they double down and defend themselves. Even going as far as, like I mentioned, to take credit for the horror that was really created by misogyny, not their shitty writing. That is why women write books like this, like all of the unhinged recommendations I'm about to share with you. And that's why I wanted to recommend these to you. So I have 20 books about unhinged women. I was going to only feature books by female identifying authors, but then I realized that we need to give some kind of recognition to the men who are at least attempting to understand us, attempting to be allies in some way. None of these books gave me the misogyny ick. Any misogyny in these books was completely intentional and designed to lend itself to the commentary of the book, which obviously is not something that I'm gonna get mad about. It's only the unintentional, bumbling foolness of a male author that will really, really get me going. And it's worse when they don't see what I'm saying and are just like, oh no, now the girl's triggered. Like, it's not that. It's not about the horror. The horror's fine, bestie, I can take it. It's that you're taking credit for something about the world. This is the world's horror. This is not your horror. You're not a good author. Anyway, let's get into the books. The first one that I have on this list is Mayfly by CJ Lead. This is about a woman with a lot going on, and we follow her in her very character-driven, fever-dreamish account of her life as she kills people and grapples with it. There are a lot of feminist themes in this book, and I loved the unhinged character. It's not my favorite of the ones on this list, but it is one that I've read the most recently, and it partly inspired me to make this video. I love the duality of this book, that our main character is like playing Elsa at Disneyland, and also murdering people by night. Like, it's the most unhinged a woman could possibly get. And there's like low-key hockey romance vibes. Yeah, this one is for the girls. Next up, I actually have a poetry collection for you, and that is I Am Not Your Final Girl by Claire C. Holland. As you can see here, I have my final girl necklace on. It is a trope. People love to play into it. Honestly, it's not harmful on its face, really. It can be fun and campy, but it can also become an issue, and this poetry collection kind of dives into that, giving representation to the final girls, and every single poem is named after a specific horror movie and the final girl that was in it. So there are spoilers for all the horror movies that are talked about in here, but it's also nothing that you couldn't predict on its own. I really enjoyed this one, and I got a lot out of it. If you're looking for feminist horror that is completely unhinged, this is the one. Next up, I actually have a thriller to talk about, and that is Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. This is really the only book that I've truly enjoyed from B.A. Paris, and that is because there are some unhinged women in here. It is about a woman who's trying to escape her abusive relationship, and she's gonna do anything to do that. It is heart pumping, it is crazy, and we see this woman grasping back every inch of power she can possibly get. We are right along with her the entire journey. It is heart-wrenching, it is twisty, and the end is the perfect unhinged women ending. Next up, I want to talk about the Mindfuck series. This is like quintessential good for her story about a girl who is a female serial killer, and she is getting revenge on picking off one by one the people who tormented her and caused her trauma in the past. It is pretty intense, but it's also got some romance themes as we follow the romance between herself and the FBI agent who's assigned to her case. This entire series is made up of 5 small, like about 100-page long novellas, but they go really fast, and it goes so off the rails at the end. I loved every single second of it. Next up, we have something just a little bit different, and that is Not So Perfect Strangers by L.S. Stratton. And this is another thriller, and it's kind of about woman-on-woman crime, like how women can play into misogyny, and it talks a lot about intersectionality in feminism. We are following a white woman and a black woman, both of which are trying to escape their current abusive relationships, and how they kind of interact and their paths cross. And of course, because intersectionality is a thing, the black woman is getting the brunt of the patriarchy's wrath. So we're seeing both sides, but really seeing how black women can be taken advantage of by their fellow woman who's white. I think this is really important commentary, but beyond that, it is also super thrilling. And we see both of these women just going to the ends of the earth, not only for themselves, but for their kids. And it's not right, but seeing this white woman go absolutely unhinged Karen mode is very entertaining. Next up, we have my favorite book of 2022, the best thing that I read last year, and that was Blood Sugar by Sasha Rothschild. This is about our main character, Ruby, and it's really just about her entire life. If you don't like character-driven books, you're not gonna like this, but I absolutely loved it. I just talked about this one in my summer book recs. We know that Ruby has committed 3 murders, and now she's accused of her husband's murder, but she is just adamant that she did not kill him. So we have to find out how he died, and along the way we're also finding out about the absolutely unhinged murders that she did commit. Next up, I have a little short story collection, and that is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. These are all just like trippy, existential, fantastical feminist horror stories. One of them is just like a complete list of every single violent act against women that happens in SVU. It's completely unhinged, off the rails, tons and tons of commentary on women's issues. Everything from sexual assault to eating disorders to intergenerational trauma. All of it, it's in here. It's through a horror lens. I'm obsessed. Next up, we have something a little bit different, and that is Any Man by Amber Tamblyn. I love this book. This is another one that is super unhinged, super crazy, but it has a lot to say. I feel like some of it low-key went over my head. There was so much to say, but I would much rather have that than a man grasping at straws. So basically, this book is about a female serial rapist and her male victims and how they get treated like typical victims of rape in our actual society. So it's kind of exploring like if the script was flipped, How would things be different? Yeah, the patriarchy is really not gonna like this one. They're really not gonna like it. And I swear to God, all the incels in the comments, like, these are the people who are protesting the Barbie movie. Like, next up, let's talk about Temper by Lane Fargo. In this book, we are following an actress who is coming up on the Chicago theater scene as she gets casted in a play with this really famous director who also stars in the show. And they start having this really uncomfortable and increasingly concerning relationship. It's about the ways that women can feel trapped, especially when there are power dynamics at play. It is so haunting, but again, super, super character driven, super, super trippy. It's not a very satisfying read, but if you're just down to read about feminine rage, you gotta read this one because it will awaken something in your soul. Next up, I want to talk about one of my favorite books of all time with possibly the most unhinged character I've ever read from, and that is The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torre. Not a lot of people love this book. I do. And we are following a cam girl in this book. She completely locks herself in her apartment, does not emerge, and she has a job where she can do that. And that is, she's a cam girl, so she's literally sitting in her house camming. And the reason why she does this is because she knows if she lets herself out of her apartment, she's not going to be able to control herself. She will kill people. But what happens when someone deserving of her wrath is exposed on the internet and she feels like she needs to leave the house and give him a little chop chop? That is what we follow in this book and in the consecutive series that unfolds. It's a trilogy. It is great. It is heart-wrenching. You fall in love with the characters. It's funny. It's everything, but mostly unhinged. Next up, I have another Lane Fargo book, and of course that is They Never Learn, and this is my favorite Good for Her thriller. Not only are the twists shocking and the characters intriguing, but it's got that unhinged bisexual energy that just speaks to my soul. We are following a professor on a campus who finds out about the men who do shitty things to the female students and faculty, and she gives them exactly what they deserve. But what will happen when someone is hot on her trail? You gotta read it and figure out. Next up, we have a dark romance to talk about. My favorite dark romance, and that is There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. In this book, we are following two male serial killers, one of which is like a Robin Hood type of character, and he's the main love interest. He takes out people who deserve to be murdered. And the other one is just like a brutal killer of women. And something happens when our Robin Hood-esque kind of killer comes across one of the other guys' would-be victims. He awakens something in her. They go unhinged and have this serial killer romance together. It is phenomenal, so good. I like the second one even more than the first one, but you gotta start here. Highly recommend reading it on Kindle Unlimited and following along with the Spotify playlist. Chef's kiss. Amazing. And next up, I want to talk about Sweet Pea by CJ Scoose. This is a series, or the first book in a series, I should say. I haven't read past the first one though, so I can't speak to the whole series. We are following Rhiannon, who is an unhinged British woman with lots of female rage in her soul because of the things that she's been through, which we do find out about. But mostly, we are following her as she has this mental kill list, and she goes along wanting to murder people who just slightly inconvenience her, which I think every single woman on the face of the planet has experienced at one point or another. So she is pretty relatable. I didn't rate this one as highly as the other ones in this video, but I did enjoy it. It doesn't have too much to say, and I need that little bit of commentary. Y'all know me. But if you're looking for a kind of darkly funny, unhinged female rage recommendation, this is great. Next up, we have our first pick written by a man, and that is The Murders of Molly Southbourne. This is by Tade Thompson, but I think he captures our unhinged female main character extremely well. Molly is in this dilemma where every single time she bleeds, a new version of her spawns. So she literally has like clones of her running around, but these aren't just any clones. They want to take her out. They want to kill the original Molly. That is their one goal. This is also a 3-book series, and I love every single one. There are some slight romance vibes, but mostly we are just watching Molly, our queen, go absolutely feral, taking care of these alternate versions of herself. It's kind of sci-fi vibes. She has a lot of harnessed rage that she puts into her singular mission of being the last Molly on the planet, and I think it has a lot to say. Why not go with the written by a man thread, and I'll recommend one more for you. You could probably guess this was going to be on this list. Full Brutal by Christopher Triana. I basically feel like I am Kim right now. I am in my red with my long dark hair, and Kim is just such a queen. She is this little cheerleader, and she has it all, but none of it's enough because the rage in her little teenage girl soul is unstoppable. And if you've ever been a teenage girl, then you are very in touch with that, and she doesn't quell it. It doesn't get beaten down in her like it does in the rest of us. No, she is not affected by the society we live in. Kim is gonna do whatever she's gonna do, and she kills people. So it is so unhinged. It is so much fun. There is so much character development. I'm honestly very surprised that this was written by a man, but I really, really love Christopher Triana's work, so is it really that surprising? Not so. Next up, I want to talk about The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this is a modern retelling of Carrie. I feel like if there's any story that is the original representation of feminine rage, just about a girl that's been pushed to the absolute limit, it is Carrie. Sucks that that was written by a man. But if you didn't know, Stephen King had a lot of help from his wife in developing that story. She should get the credit she deserves, but I digress. Tiffany D. Jackson makes Carrie even better, in my opinion. In her book, The Weight of Blood, we are following Maddie, and she is a mixed race little girly. She's half black and half white, but she is white passing until one day when her hair gets wet and kinks up into curls, and everyone at her school finds out that she's mixed. And of course, she's facing this horrible bullying and racism as people find out about this. She lives in a really small southern town, and there's a lot of ignorance. They even have a segregated prom, and that is where things come to a head, and Miss Maddie unleashes everything she's ever felt for these people. Also, a really important detail that I appreciated different from the original Carrie is that it's Maddie's father that is being so oppressive and horrible to her, rather than like in the original Carrie, it was Carrie's mother. I think it adds an additional element there as well. Next up, we have another one of the books from my top 3 reads of last year, and that is The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. This book is completely brutal. Trigger warnings for a lot of things, but if you can handle it, I highly recommend it. It's not just violence for violence sake. It definitely has a purpose, and that is for the commentary on rape culture, true crime, the patriarchy in general. There are so many things that are discussed in this book that I think are so important and worthy of the violence that's portrayed. In this book, we are following a housewife who listens to a true crime podcast and realizes that the case they're talking about centers around her roommates from college. So she goes on a quest to figure out exactly what happened, and along the way, she gets caught up in a dark web of secrets, lies, and misogyny. There is a lot of violence against women in here, so please make sure you look at triggers, as you should for basically all the books that I'm talking about, because they are all pretty dark, but especially for this one, it is brutal. I think it heightens the level of commentary, and it makes the end all the more cathartic when you see our main character fighting back and finally unleashing the rage that builds up throughout the story. But I do want to warn people of that. I loved it. This is like one of my favorite books of all time. To me, Miss Ashley Winstead can do no wrong. She can just do no wrong. And the last few recommendations that I have for you are specifically around motherhood. So maybe these wouldn't be the best books for younger gals like myself, but then again, I am not a mother and I do not wish to be a mother, at least not anytime soon. So I enjoyed them. You could definitely still enjoy them, but I think they're more geared towards commentary around motherhood rather than just general misogyny and feminine rage against the machine. My first pick in this last little category is Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder, and we are following a mother in this book who suspects that she is slowly turning into a dog or a werewolf of sorts, and what that means for her, why it's happening. It's basically like plotless, weird horror chock to the brim with commentary, which is exactly what I love. It was a trippy fever dream that made me think about how me as a woman fits into society, where I've been told that I fit versus where I actually fit. So many thoughts were going through my mind, and I love a book that makes me think, especially one that ignites that little piece of rage that lives deep inside every woman. I feel like I sound crazy right now, but the girlies get it. And I should add, like, while these books are dark, because of what they have to say, they feel so just right. And I would never ever say anything about these books similar to, I should be locked up for enjoying this. No, this is completely appropriate and morally fine. So don't worry about that. Nothing morally reprehensible is happening in these books unless it's trying to prove a point that it's bad. Next up, I want to recommend The Push by Ashley Audrain. And this is about a mother who is struggling to connect with her child. She thinks that there's something deeply, deeply wrong with her daughter, especially when she has her second child, a little boy, and they easily connect. So if you like a creepy kid thriller with a side of commentary and beautiful literary writing style, this one is definitely for you. And the last book that I have to recommend in this video is kind of controversial. It could go either way. We read it in my book club, and about half of us gave it 4 and 5 stars, and the other half literally gave it 1 and 2 stars. So take that with what you will, but it is a chunk of a book. It's about 500 pages. It is The Violence by Delilah S. Dawson, and this follows 3 generations of women, a grandmother, mother, and daughter, and the various reactions they have to this deadly pandemic that is happening in their world. It is not COVID, so don't worry, it's not another COVID book. The pandemic that's happening is around a disease called the violence, and when you get it, you go absolutely, completely feral, unhinged, and you just kill the next person that lands in your sights. So the mother character in this book is in an abusive marriage, and she uses the violence as an excuse to try to get out of it, saving herself, saving her kids, and working through the trauma that was passed down to her through the generations. It is so good, so cathartic, but it is very character driven, so it winds around in weird tangents sometimes, and it is completely unhinged. So like, expect nothing. At no point did I ever know where the story was gonna go, and I loved that. With that, those are my top 20 unhinged feminine rage recommendations. For the girlies who get it, I hope you read and really enjoy some of these books. And my parting message to you is just to not let these men slide. We are allowed to be angry. Me, right now, I am allowed to be angry. If you're about to comment telling me that I'm not allowed to be angry, guess what? I am. Let's call out casual misogyny when we see it in literature and outside of it. It's not just about us. It's not just about women. The patriarchy and misogyny hurts men too, as we've all seen in the Barbie movie. I do not need to say it again. Many people have said it, but these men just apparently don't get it. The real fucking epidemic is misogyny. So you're allowed to feel angry about it. And we do. And all of these characters in these books are so validating and so cathartic. And go fucking heal. And release that anger in a healthy way by reading one of these books rather than, I don't know, killing men. I mean, I would not like to do that. I am not a murderess, but it is so nice to read about it. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you're an incel, I hope you did not. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like, and girlies, we really gotta like it because I know these boys are gonna find me and thumbs down this video. So please give me a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to go to therapy, because that's the other part of this. We gotta go to therapy and process that anger. Read a book this week, preferably one of these, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!